Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the live room here. Welcome to the live stream if you're on Facebook. Welcome to the replay if you're watching this afterwards. Thank you very much for joining. We've got people streaming in already, man. This is people are always interested in talking about referrals. It's fun to this is always a fun topic to have a conversation around. So we're looking forward to seeing how the conversation goes today. As we bring people in, we've got about 10 people or so on so far. But yeah, so we'll keep them coming in. Give it a couple minutes for people to realize that we went live and hit the button to accept and join the room. But yeah, it's good to see everybody here. Good to, Jared, I'm seeing you, Jerry, Paul, seeing all you guys. Thanks so much for joining us, Sage, Regina, Eddie. Very, very cool to have everybody on the call with us here today, on the webinar, on the panel, I guess, with us today. Let's dive in here because I think we're going to end up having a lot to cover. We are the whole idea for today is we're talking about referrals. And so yeah, thanks so much for joining us for today's discussion. This is all about how to simply generate referrals from your network, right? How those kind of key things that you need to be doing to be creating referrals on demand. My name is Ian Campbell. I am the CEO of Mission Suite. Obviously, if you've seen any of my content in the past, I put out a ton of information around this. So it's an exciting topic for me. Joining me today, as always, is Dean Isaacs, who is the founder and CEO of Vantage Group, who's a serial entrepreneur with over 20 years of hands-on business growth, sales, and marketing experience. He works with business-to-business companies across the U.S., ranging from startups to Fortune 500, and he loves helping small and mid-sized businesses achieve growth goals by developing and implementing high-impact sales, marketing, and growth strategies. So before we dive in today, I do want to just kind of quickly address a couple housekeeping items. As always, we are going to be taking questions throughout the session today. And so if you're on Zoom with us here today, do us a favor, use the Q&A button on Zoom. If you're on Facebook or watching us on streaming, then definitely just fire off some questions inside of the comments there. We'll keep an eye on that. If you're watching this, if you're watching the replay of this here, then drop your questions down in the comment section, and we'll make sure that those get answered as well. So thank you for that. Just help us to kind of keep things as streamlined as possible here. We definitely appreciate it. So let's dive in here. Let's jump into this. Last month we actually kind of wrapped up talking a little bit about referrals, and of course, as per usual, that's where a lot of the questions came from. And so when Dean and I were talking about what to do for this month's session, we decided let's give it a shot and really focus on answering some of the questions that people tend to ask us when we are having these conversations. So Dean, you want to kind of anything you want to kind of kick off here before we as we jump in?
Yeah, other than just saying, referrals are the core of most people's business, right? Especially before you figure out all this other marketing stuff. You hope people are going to say, I know somebody that needs to give you money, right? That's the goal of a referral. And so we won't talk about, we know referrals are usually better quality leads, they convert more easily, and people spend more money. We know all that stuff. That's why everybody registered for today's session. So we won't spend time there. But I will say that we're going to cover a whole bunch of ideas. So anybody that's on the call, have your pen and paper ready. We're going to be hitting you with a whole bunch of ideas. Some are going to be like, well, yeah, I already do that. Well, there may be other people on the call that don't do it.
Right.
And the fact that you do this particular thing, is there a way to optimize it as well, to make it repeatable and scalable too? So we'll get into a whole bunch of ideas. We'll break down how to produce enough inbound referrals where you can rely on them, right? That's the goal. Right. It's this whole roller coaster of referrals that kills a business because you never know when the next introduction is going to come. So we want to get you past that and make it more predictable.
That's it. And, I think you bring up a good point that as good as our referral marketing or referral networking, what have you, tools are and with our processes, you can always make it better, right? There's always something that someone else is doing that you're not, right? And so kind of thinking about some different things that are going on. And, one of the first thing that we have kind of in our notes here is something that I don't actually talk too much about. When I talk, most of the time that I talk about referrals, I talk about building your referral network, right? And so it's one very specific world or section of referrals. But one of the things that you've been diligent about kind of talking about is that there are really three different types of referrals that we should be looking at. So do you want to start by kind of diving in on that?
Yeah, I kind of break referrals down by like source, right? Who's giving me the referral? And I think about referral partners, right? So those are people out in the world that work with or know people that look like your ideal client, right? Those are referral partners, people that are going to say, I'm going to connect Ian with Joe, that kind of thing. So those are referral partners. And those are the people we typically think about when we talk about referrals.
Right.
But I think there's another couple of chunks or layers. So the next layer up, let's say, is what I call strategic partners. And it's like that list of software, right? Column one, you get, but then column two is one plus all this stuff.
Right.
So that's what the strategic partners are. So all that stuff that I said that referral partners are,
right.
The plus are really, they're people with, I would describe it as synergistic services, where you can come together, maybe bundle your services, co-market, co-present, co-business develop, work together very strategically to build inbound referrals. And we'll get into a little more detail around that. And then the third are, of course, clients, right? Clients are the other bucket of referral partners that often are untapped. And I think you have to treat that group a little differently to everybody else, because the relationship is different and the way they think of you and the way they might interact with you is a little different. So those are the three: referral partners, strategic partners, and clients.
So let's dive in on the client referral aspect real quick. Sure. You make a good point that, you've really got to be careful and treat them a little bit differently from the way that you would treat just a referral partner or even a strategic partner, right? Because they're like the enterprise class of referral partners, right? I mean, that's everything in the basic plus everything in the plus, and then finally you got all the rest of this, and they're giving you money too,
and they're actually giving you money, right?
That's right, exactly, right. And so how do you kind of what are some of the things that we need to be cautious of as far as kind of interacting with clients who we're trying to turn into referral partners as we're going through that? Because obviously you can't just reach out to a client every month and say, hey, who do you know now? Right.
Yeah.
Although I know a few Northwestern Mutual guys that have done that to me in the past, which that's a different conversation, but
that happens. It does happen. Yeah. I would say some of it is between your own ears and some of it is in the relationship. And so I think people tend to fit into two camps. They over ask or they don't ask, right? And so there's this interesting statistic I read that only 11% of sales reps worldwide, and I don't know where this stat came from, I'll say that, ask for referrals. Only 11% of reps ask for referrals. But when asked, 91% of customers say that they would give a referral when asked.
Right.
So take that statistic with a grain of salt, which is fine. The point is that if you've built trust with your client, if you do good work, right, and you add value and you've delivered on your promise, there's a very high likelihood they will be happy to refer to you if you ask. Will they think of you without asking? Probably not. They're busy running their business. They're day to day. They're all this noise in the world is going on. They're not thinking of you. They're not. It's not that they don't care.
Right.
They care about their stuff.
Sure.
And so the act of simply asking, do you know anybody else who'd be interested in our stuff? Often is a soft and easy way to get an introduction. And they're like, you know what? I do. I'm really pleased you asked me because I have someone in mind. So that's really one of the secrets, is just being genuine, having a relationship, delivering value, but then asking. And the question is sort of like when and how often. I don't think you ask a client every week, every month. That's too much.
Yeah.
What I found, one of the best times to ask for a referral is when you've just delivered the magic for them, right? Depending on your business, whatever it is, you've just saved the money, you've just made the money, you've just help them get time back. And they're like really buzzing. That's the time. I am so pleased we've done this for you. Do you know anybody else that this could help too?
Yeah.
Be genuine. That's it. That's, if you only take away one thing today, that's it. That's the nugget right there.
Right.
So the frequency really depends on the frequency of delivering value to the client.
Yeah.
So that, I would say that's the key for, if I'm going to really simplify it, that's the key for asking for client referrals. And do it in person too. Have a conversation. Don't send an email. Don't send a text. Have a human-to-human conversation, because that's what you're asking for, right? You're asking for that human connection.
Yeah, right. You know, and it's interesting too, because what I found as I've kind of gone through some of this in the past is that one of the biggest challenges about getting a client to refer you to somebody else is that they don't know who else you should be working with, right? Because in some realms, like in our world, right? I mean, in the sales world, we as a business owner, I know that everybody that I know wants to build sales, wants to grow sales, wants to have a better solution for the sales problem, right? And so that's there's that, but then there's other industries that are out there, like and I know that there's a Service Master, guy from Service Master on here today, right? And he's one of the restoration guys. Good, is a buddy of mine, and like it's a pretty specific role that he fills, right? And a pretty specific world that he's got to be playing in. So one of the things that I found makes that kind of process a little bit easier is during the sales process, during the whole get to know you process, some of the questions that come up are easy ways to kind of figure out where else they're connecting with people, right? I mean, like, hey, Mr. CEO or Mr. Hospital Administrator or Mr., or Miss, or, whatever. I mean, like the so-and-so, where are you, who else are you learning from, right? I mean, there's obviously, we're all growing, and what else are you doing to get better at your job? I'm sure that there's other things that you're a part of. What are those things, right? Because we're all doing the same stuff anyway, right? And so then all of a sudden you get to that point, and when you deliver the magic, or when something happens, then you're able to say, hey, listen, anybody else in your mastermind group that you think would be a good connection that I could talk to? Because obviously this worked pretty well for you. I mean, and you're working with these other folks. Anybody else that you can think of?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it kind of goes also back to building the right kind of relationship with the referral partners and the strategic partners. They have to know who you want to work with, and you have to know who they work with, right? So even when it extends to that client, and it's funny because there have been times in the past where a client has said to me, "I'm not going to refer you." So I don't want my competition, right? My competition knowing the stuff that I know. So that's the greatest flattery you can get. So I'm like, okay, totally agree. I don't need to work with your competition, but who are your suppliers? Who are your vendors? Who are your partners? Who are your clients? Right? Who are the other people in your world that can still benefit from this kind of thing? And actually, maybe even an indirect benefit to you as well, because if they're better at that, it may have a positive impact on your business too. That's true. Okay. And then it connects the dots for them. Right. So I actually also think that if you've got relationships, you can have a little fun with this as well.
Oh, sure.
And then you bring sort of jokes and levity into the conversation, it breaks down the awkwardness as well. Yeah. You're sitting there saying, I'm not going to leave the office until you give me 3 business cards of people that that I should call, like the old school wealth managers. Yeah. That's no fun. I'm not going to do that, right? It's not going to happen. So have a little fun with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, it's one of those things where we all, there's that old saying, all things being equal, people would rather do business with those that they know, like, and trust. All things not being equal, they'd still rather do business with those people, right? And so as you're getting to know that person, as you're getting to that know, like, trust aspect of it, the fourth piece of that is refer, right? So, I mean, once they know you, they like you, they trust you. And this goes through for all the different types of referral partners. Presumably, if you sign them as a client or a customer, then they've gotten to that point already, right? They know you, they like you enough, but they at least they trust you, and they're ready to move forward with you. You know, so you've gotten to that point, but during all the time that you did all that work, there's so much valuable information that you can, because your clients specifically, you know, they're only going to think about, well, I know other people. And this kind of goes into your point. Well, I know other people that are in my industry, right? But if I'm in a competitive situation and you're going to help them get better too, then no, I'm not going to refer you to anybody, right? But because you're my competitive edge, that's not, you know, that doesn't make sense for me. But if, you know, but through that time, you also know, well, listen, I know for a fact that you're in a Vistage group. And so who else in your Vistage group is trying to resolve this problem, right? That kind of thing.
It is. And so I think there's a lot of these sort of techniques that we can use. And to me, I think of when people say, I'm not getting enough referrals, it usually means they have a passive approach to building that referral channel. Right. So they're coffeeing and lunching and all of this stuff. And it just doesn't produce the referrals. We all hear it. We hear it all the time. Most people that go into death by coffee. Most people that go into business for themselves go down the death by coffee route for a year or two, or sometimes 10, before they realize, well, crap, that doesn't work.
Right.
So having an active referral process is the secret. And this is one step, right? This conversation we've been talking about with clients is one step. I would add to the client component, the beauty of social media is you can get reach through somebody else's network. So let's use LinkedIn, for example. You know, we all want to be able to use a client as a reference. We want them to be a testimonial. We want them to be a quote on our social media feed. That's awesome. Ask for permission. If they're willing to refer you, they're probably willing to do some of those other things as well. So another really great thing you can do as an active approach is to write something about your client. Just wrapped up on an amazing project with Ian over at Mission Suite. There's great things to come, blah, blah, blah. And you tag that person in your post. Let them know you're going to do it and ask for them to comment on the post back. Now, all of their network has just seen that comment. You've got credibility through that comment, right? Through that association with your client. And I've seen that happen where referrals came in because of that activity. And the client, all they did is they say, it was Ian, it was awesome working with you. I'm so excited about the things we did. You the man. Yeah. And that comment back gets reach, and it also can create inbound referrals. So that's another really easy thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and I mean, we'll dive into this, I'm sure, and when we start talking about referral process, but using this kind of referral mining approach, right? And because I mean, you can get, I mean, there's all sorts of information that you can get. But the key thing, especially when it comes to clients, in my experience anyway, is that you've got to ask, right? I mean, you've got to be direct in what you're asking for, because again, clients aren't going to know who to refer you to. Referral partners and strategic partners, which we'll touch on, which we'll kind of dive into next, they should know who you're looking for. But you're not going to sit down with your clients and say, oh, so these are my ideal client types, you know, anyone from between 5 and 30 employees, and, maybe about 5 million to 30 million in revenue, right? I mean, you're not going to go through that whole thing, right? No. Doing that with referral partners is an important thing, but with a client is a different story. And so you've got to be really, really specific and actually be proactive in the ask. I'm looking for somebody that does this role, that is in this role in this kind of a company. Do you know anybody? Who do you know that fits that, right? And I think that's actually something that the way that you ask that question too is something that I learned from somebody else, I don't know, a handful of years ago, that saying, who do you know, that gets them thinking about, activates the brain in a different way than just saying, do you know anybody like that? Because it's because there's an assumption that that I'm sure you know somebody in that world, and then you start thinking about it in a different way, because it's like a mix of a challenge and And
Yeah.
you know, and like, well, the need to prove yourself, right? And I do know
Right.
people in
Right.
that role. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like any good question during the sales conversation. You ask the question and then you shut up.
Right. Yeah.
Don't fill in that gap, that feel like you've got to fill that silence.
Right.
Let them think. You just ask them a question.
Yeah.
Let them think. Let them think. And if they're truly struggling after maybe 5 or 6 seconds, because that seems like an eternity, right? You know, what about the vendors you work with, or your other trusted advisors, or whomever the right market is for you?
Yeah.
Then you can sort of give them some direction, but ask the question, shut up, let them respond.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, you know, we so you know, as you know, and a lot of people that kind of follow us know, I'm raising a 2-year-old, right? I mean, and so my wife and I, you know, let's be honest, my wife is you know, significantly better at all this stuff than I am, but you know, she's reading a lot of the stuff that like we give ourselves and each other, you know, when we have bad days, right? Like it happens all the time. And we're like, okay, you're just having a bad day. But for some reason, when you know, when it's our kid, it's like, no, you don't get to have a bad day. You don't get to, you know, to be moody, whatever, right? That sort of thing. I find we have that same kind of mentality when it comes to asking questions of clients, whether it be through the sales process or through anything else. Like if you and I are having a conversation and I'm talking and I ask you a question, it's natural for me to just kind of say, to give you a little bit of time to figure out what you want to say, think about your answer, and then let you respond.
Right.
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 For
Yep.
some
Yep.
reason, when it comes to a client or a prospect, we don't give them that same thing, right? We feel like we need to keep guiding them along the way. And you're just like, so it's important to just be able to stop talking, right? And maintain that. It's a sales skill that you learned a long time ago. It translates here too.
Totally right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh man, very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of the strategic partners and referral network aspect of this that we kind of brought up here. Because I think that's definitely important. The strategic partners in particular, because there's a distinction that we need to make sure to make when we're talking about just a referral partner and an actual strategic partner. So can you dive in a little bit on that?
Yeah, of course. So we've talked about referral partners, and you can use any analogy you like to categorize your referral partners. Your A's, your B's, your C's, your home base, your first base, whatever the analogy is. But at the top of the pyramid, or that small group, usually let's say 10 people, give or take 5 or so, that are super well connected with you and you are with them. They clearly know what you do. You clearly know what they do. They know how to find introductions for you and are actively making introductions, right? That's your top tier referral partners. But it's just, I say just because it's highly valuable, but it's just introductions.
Right.
That's all it is. It's people looking for ways to introduce you and you're introducing them. That next tier is the strategic partners. As I said earlier, it's looking for opportunities to literally co-sell, sometimes co-market, package your products and services together so there's a more of a synergy in the marketplace, a bigger opportunity, perhaps. That's what a strategic partner is. So you sometimes they're also known as, well, not also known, a piece of that could be an affiliate program, sure, right? Where I'm paid a little piece of revenue to refer to software or to services or to products, and I get a little piece of that back end. That's an affiliate program. That can be a co-revenue share, but it's not the same as a strategic partner because it's one way. I send people to abc.com and I get 1% back.
Right.
That's fine. That's a revenue opportunity, but it's not the same as a strategic partner. So it's a concept to sell with, market with, package and promote with. That's really where a strategic partner comes in. So you can do things like this, co-branded webinars, right? Yeah. You can go to your existing clients, perhaps, or their existing clients, and repackage and sell more stuff, add more value. Yeah. And that's different to just a referral partner that's just going to trade referrals over time.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting to talk about this a little bit because, you know, obviously I have my referral network, right? And then I do have strategic partners. Obviously, you and I are a perfect example of this. but then Mission Suite, I'm also in the process of rebuilding Mission Suite's channel partner program. So, and it's kind of interesting because it kind of moves as you kind of grow through the ranks of channel partners, you move from kind of an affiliate of, just, yeah, I'm willing to send people to you and be direct and diligent about it for, $100 $100 a client, but then once you get over a certain number of people, then, you move into this kind of, all right, now you're getting a recurring revenue. So you're getting recurring revenue from us and whatnot. And it kind of goes through that process of from that affiliate level all the way up to when it's like, whatever gold or whatever, whatever it is, right? You can't get too creative with these things, I found. But when you get to that gold,
money, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. When you get to that gold level, then there's co-marketing opportunities and, white label marketing opportunities where we set money aside for a marketing development fund and things like that. And so doing that actually does create that strategic partnership, because when you have folks like that, then you start to sit down with them once a week, once every couple weeks, to say, okay, who are we going after and what do we need to do to close the deal?
Yeah.
Because now we're both in this, right? Like we've both paid for this marketing thing now. And we, so now we got to make sure that we're getting something out of it, right? So whether that's actually money that you both are putting into marketing something or hosting an event or whatever, or if it's something, or if it's just the time and effort that it takes to find those things, there's value on being delivered on both sides to the in service of the partnership.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, absolutely. And if there's a way to package and bundle, I think there's a huge opportunity. I'm working with a client. They're in the industrial production space, and they make the raw product that the bigger products are made out of. And then there's the actual machine, right? So there's the machine and there's the product. They come together and it spits out a finished good. Mm-hmm. So what they did was my client, who's the raw materials piece, partnered up with the machinery equipment company, and they did a webinar, a really unique webinar on a topic that they knew their shared market cared about. Mm-hmm. Then they did this back end, almost like a competition for people to produce a widget using the part and the material.
Yeah.
And now they can go to market. The real upside for my client was that the machinery equipment company had a massive list, right? They're global. They had hundreds of thousands of clients. My client's not that big.
Right.
And so by association, they got access to all of that list. They got credibility by association, and they were able to open up conversations because they co-marketed, and it was actually a tangible benefit for everybody, for the client, for the machinery equipment company, and for my client too. So they were active in creating that, because prior to that, they were saying, how can we get more leads? How can we get more introductions from this equipment company? Mm-hmm. We've tried to work with some of the reps. We've tried to build this sort of like affiliate conversation going, and the reps don't care.
Yeah.
Well, the reps don't care. The reps are just trying to close deals. Yeah. They don't want to complicate their world. And so this joint event really created a true synergy and created revenue for both sides of the equation. So I would encourage people on the call to think about who else is in your ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. Who's providing synergistic or aligned services to the same kind of clients, and is there value? So I'm looking at our attendees, and there's somebody on, a business broker that's on, and so who could that person partner up with? Accounting firm.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm preaching to this choir, right? Accounting firm, maybe there's a wealth planner, maybe there's a tax advisor, maybe there's someone like myself that helps build businesses and revenue, so when they exit, there's a bigger value. Yeah. There's lots of ways to partner up. And instead of asking for that one-off referral, be active in building that referral channel. That goes back to active versus passive.
Yeah,
so
right.
You have to get a little creative sometimes.
Absolutely. And then of course the referral network is that last piece of it. And that's kind of that's where everything else comes into play, right? It's that's when we find ourselves networking and going out to and finding other ideal referral partners. And so, which brings me to kind of another point that I want to dive into. Before I do, as most people probably know, I host a podcast called the Referral Bench Podcast with Phil Pelto. Dean was actually our first guest on the Referral Bench Podcast, and this is actually the what I'm about to ask him is what was really what he talked a lot about during that podcast. And that's how to identify your perfect referral partner, right? How to identify those ideal partners. And so if you haven't yet, go back and listen to that, episode 1 of the Referral Bench Podcast, because
it's way down in the archives. It's way
exactly
down.
right. We're at like 60 now or something like that. So you'll have to scroll a bit, but it's worth it once you find it. But obviously Dean and I have talked a lot about ideal client profiles. And this was the first time that I had actually heard introduced the ideal referral partner profile as a concept. So Dean, why don't you dive in a little bit on that?
Yeah, and it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like, as you said, we spend a lot of time thinking about the right kind of clients we want to work with and all of the characteristics of all of that stuff, but we don't spend enough time putting the same effort into our referral partner profiling. And so I really think about it in the very same manner. The closer we can get to this ideal profile and find people that fit it, what you'll find really quickly is your inbound referrals will go up really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. You as we've said, death by coffee, right? You meet lots and lots and lots and lots of people, and they don't turn out to be referral partners that are going to be productive. Here's the reason. They either don't really have it in their DNA to want to give. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the first thing. I don't care what they do or who they work with. If they're not a giver, you should be able to tell that by the stories they tell and the way they communicate. If they're not a giver first, the rest of it doesn't matter. So if you can get a sense of that, that's number one. And then the other piece is, in terms of your referral partner profile, is who do they work with? Who do they and their client, who do they and their business work with? What is the client profile, their ideal client profile? Because if their ideal client profile doesn't align with your ideal client profile, there's a lot of likelihood they can refer you to their clients.
Right.
So that's another piece of it. Another layer is the individual. If you're talking to a salesperson, right, and they're like the door opener, mm-hmm. They're talking to the prospect, they're kind of getting them across the threshold. But once they land the deal, they step out of the relationship. They don't have a long-term relationship. That may or may not be a good referral partner for you because they don't have a relationship. Mm-hmm. Right? If it's a business owner that has an ongoing kind of dialogue with clients, it could be a really good referral partner. Right. So think about who that individual speaks with within their client base and within their world. Are they talking high enough on the food chain, in the right areas of a company that you would want to be connected with? And they having the sort of the right level of conversation. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm talking to business owners about their strategy and their direction and growing their business. It's fairly strategic. So if I have a referral partner that's just they're focused on HR compliance, and they're only talking to HR managers and directors, great, just not a good fit for me. Right. So that's part of like really developing this referral partner profile. So you can really quickly hone in on who are the right individuals. And you can ask your A-level referral partners, who else do they know that fit that profile? Right. Cut through all the noise and get to who they're connected with that you can reciprocate with as well. So that's sort of the referral partner profiling process, much like client profiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I would add to that is that you kind of touched on is the industry that they're in, right? The industry that the company that partner is in. Because, for example, if you touched in, because you talked about who they're talking to and things like that, right? Well, I mean, I may have like an HR consultant, for example, maybe talking to a business owner, but their conversations are so far apart from where I am that realistically it's going to be a 1 in 100 shot, 1 in a million shot for them to actually refer someone to me, right? Yeah. Or for that to come up in conversation. So being able to kind of identify that, and that's kind of where that ABC, home plate, infield, outfield, whatever your kind of nomenclature is, it gets to be really important because, sure, if you can find those folks and you can kind of delineate people in that regard, it always feels a little kind of gross to kind of say, oh no, he's a real A player, he's a B player, he's a C player, right? I mean, you never want to do that, but it's important because the only way to actually build referrals from these folks is to spend time with them, is to be in touch with them, and to be intentional about doing some of this stuff.
Right.
And so if you're not, if you're just spending time with anybody, right? If you're meeting with the HR, if you're a CRM sales guy and you're meeting with the HR consultant every month, that's realistically probably not a great use of your time, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to kind of figure out, first of all, you know, when you're looking at that industry, kind of based on who they're talking to and the conversations that they're having, when you're looking at that, you're able to kind of sort people and say, okay, so my A players I'm going to meet with once a month, my B players I'm going to meet with once every 3 months, my C players I'm going to meet with once every six months. So you still get to kind of connect with these people, but then you also but you're focusing your time much more intentionally. And then on top of that, you also, you know, because they're not having, CRM isn't going to come up a whole lot with the HR consultant. So the one time that it does, I'm probably going to be the only guy that's actually connecting with these guys once every 6 months, right? And so they're going to refer me or Salesforce, and because they know me and like me, they're going to refer me, right? So, you know, you get a lot more bang for your buck with those folks. Plus, to your point, you get to actually ask those people, the HR guy, hey, I know you're well networked. Who else do you know that's in the marketing space, right? Who else do you know that's a sales trainer? Who else do you know, that kind of stuff? And so, you can kind of leverage those relationships to find more of the ideal partner relationship. So it's not like we're ever recommending to just kind of cut ties with people. Although if they do fall into the I only take, which I've, you know, spent far too much time trying to get, it's like a bad dating relationship. You know, like, dude, just break up with her already, right? And it's just not gonna work. But yeah, so, but those are the only ones that I would ever say, just, you know, if they're not doing it, if they show no interest in actually even introducing you to referral partners, not even clients, but even introducing you to potential referral partners, then get them out of your network, right? Because they're not.
That's a really good point. There is two things. That the profile allows you to increase the likelihood of receiving referrals, but it also increases the likelihood of you being able to give referrals.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not referring HR people, right? It's not in your world. So it is that reciprocity thing. And the other point you made is very well taken. You know, if it's all one way, that's not ideal. Now, I will say you shouldn't keep score, right? You shouldn't keep score.
Sure.
But there is always a but. If it's clearly a selfish relationship, it's not healthy regardless. But I will say that I have a couple of people in my network that I refer to. They're awesome. They just crush it for my clients. And I don't expect referrals back because I understand just the scenario. I understand the situation, I understand where they're at. And I'm totally fine with that because they still make me look great.
Right.
When I refer them in. And we have a great relationship. And dude, it's okay because they want to refer, but they're not in a situation to do that. And it's cool. We've had that conversation. And they cared enough to say, I would love to, but here's the situation. I'm fine. I'm fine with that because that's sort of like intentional, if you will, right? It's agreed upon. But the third part was you don't always have to introduce clients. You can introduce other referral partners, and that's something that anybody should be able to do.
Exactly. And really, you know, to your point, I you know, like you never want to keep score, right? I mean, it's because you figure it out. I mean, these kinds of things. And if you do, and I think it's okay to keep a running tally to see how productive a referral partner is, especially if you have, like, I've got 3 sales consultants in my network, and 2 of them make 10 introductions. One of them makes 3 in the same amount of time. Well, maybe I need to find a couple others that are, you know, that are like the other 2, and leave that guy by. So I think that's okay, as long as you're not saying, well, I made a referral, where's mine, right? I mean,
it's never going to be 1 for 1, right? It's just
exactly right.
It's just Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And I think it's
Yeah.
important too, your other point about, there's time, like for me, for example, and I mentioned this last month too, like you and I are perfect referral partners, but I'm going to have significantly more opportunity to refer you than you are for me, because in my world, people don't change CRM just because they want to change CRM, right? It's not it's a process, and it takes a while, and you got to go through it, right? And so it's not like it's just something that you're going to do, that you're going to find. You're going to, people, anybody in general, right, are going to find a lot less, much fewer opportunities from me than I will for them, right? But to your point, it's like you do a great job for the clients. I know that you're you're willing to make introductions to other people, and so there's still a giving relationship there.
Yeah.
And there are times when, hey, listen, I know I've been introduced to marketing people and to other salespeople who, make all the difference in the world and are able to refer me because they're implementing a new, whatever, a new campaign, a new something, and then it makes sense, right? But so sometimes those can be even more effective and beneficial than an actual client referral.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and all of what we've been talking about in terms of referrals are this sort of like one-to-one relationship.
Mhm.
And if you want to continue to build on this concept of active referrals or having an active referral program, there's two more things I'd love to talk about. One of them, I only use the analogy of being a host at a dinner party, right? So you're a host, you get, let's say, so you can be a guest or you can be a host. If you're a guest at a dinner party and you get this invite, you're like, yeah, it sounds fun, but I don't know anybody. It's going to be a little weird. Maybe I'll bring a friend. And you kind of go, and it's fun and it's useful. But when you're the host, it's a whole different thing, right?
Mhm.
You're the center of attention. People know and love you. They appreciate you inviting them. You know everybody in the room. You get all of that love, and you're given all that love, and it's awesome. In the referral world, would you rather be the guest or the host? You
No.
want to be the host. And so create opportunities to be the host. And that could be as elaborate as literally a dinner party or an event where you bring your core referral partners together, ideally those that haven't overlapped in their networks. Be the host, right? Because then everybody gets to know you. You're adding credibility to the relationship. You're taking the time and effort to get these people together. So instead of having that one-to-one coffee or call or Zoom or whatever over a period of months, you can get 5 or 10 people in the room. It's all about leveraging your time and actually getting more benefit for you and the rest of the group. So think about this host concept, and you can do it in a lot of different ways. A great way I've done and I've seen work really well is, let's say you pick your top 5 or 6 referral partners, and you smile and you joke and you laugh and say, Ian, the only way you can come to this thing is if you bring one of your referral partners.
Right.
And you're like, that's cool, because I'm not a stranger in the room. I get to bring a buddy as well. So you get to add value to your 5 or 6 partners, and you get to meet 5 or 6 other really great partners, because you wouldn't bring a loser to the group. You would bring someone that would make you proud, right? And
Absolutely.
like, I'm really, right? We care about our social capital.
Yep.
So being the host in that environment can be really, really cool. So that's a really quick and easy way. And you can do it regularly, and you can mix up these groups, and it can be virtual or it can be in person. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money. You don't actually have to host a dinner, right? It could be anything. But the concept of being the host.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, just the concept of being the host is really, really powerful.
Yeah. So when I was in San Diego, actually, I had an office in Emerald Plaza down in on Broadway there, and for people that know downtown San Diego, it's the building that looks like the Allen Wrench set, right? And but I had a friend who was running an office space in One America Plaza. So just a building, 2 buildings over. For people that know San Diego, it's one that looks like the Phillips head screwdriver. I don't know why they decided to create a skyline look like a toolkit, but that's a different conversation. But we would do that. We would actually throw cocktail parties. She would open up her space, and she'd set up all of the tables, the whole 9 yards. I would invite my network, and we would cap it to 75 people. And I'd bring in my bartenders. I'd bring, the whole thing cost me maybe $500 or $600. and they donated the space for it, right? And so it was incredible, and she'd find the food too, but it was incredibly inexpensive. We do them once every month or so, and it was the best marketing, and it was best marketing for referral partners that I ever did, because again, to your point, I mean, you'd bring people, and people would show up, and again, everybody loves the host, right? Especially if you're offering free food and free alcohol.
Oh man, you're the best friend.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that approach, as you can go as big as you want,
Mhm.
or as small as you want. Another approach is what I call the 4x4 approach, which is where if you don't like that big room of people, just get 4 people together.
Yeah.
4 people, you can actually have a really intimate and in-depth conversation with 4 people over lunch or a Zoom or a coffee. It's a completely different feel to this big group. So, you can adjust this thing based on your style and preference. And again, if you're bringing a small group together, really be thoughtful about who you bring to the table. People that don't know each other, you see synergies, there's value in bringing it all together. So that's part of your active referral process. The last part I would say about the group concept is, I actually have a friend that's a financial planner, and he does these cool dinner events, right? These events, and he gets a partner and all that. And he says, it's so stressful when I show up, I'm trying to meet everyone. And he said, and sometimes I don't get to meet everyone. And then I don't know what to do. I'm like, dude, why don't you get them to RSVP?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Or have them sign in, or drop a business card, or don't let a stranger come in the door and then leave.
Right.
Yeah, you can control that. And then you can say, Ian, I saw you at the event. I'm so sorry. I know you wanted to talk to me. Let's just get together afterwards. You
Yeah.
should never let that connection, that potential relationship walk out the door. Don't do that.
Right.
Have control, RSVP, referral, whatever it is. Know who showed up, because the key is, like in any networking event, whether it's something you host or you go to, the effort of the event is just about meeting people. The relationship's built afterwards.
Yep.
So you have to have an ability to follow up. We can get into automation, all that stuff in a minute, but have a process for following up. And it starts by capturing their information.
Yeah, right. And that's an interesting, I mean, it's a great segue into the topic of how to make follow-up more effective. Whether it's at a networking event or a referral partner, initial meeting from a referral partner, you have, excuse me, again, you talked about this in your podcast. And there, for everybody else, there is more on that podcast. So that you should still go listen to, even though we're talking about a lot of the things that he mentioned. But you had talked about the fact that after an event, after you meet with a potential referral partner, after that first meeting, there's some very specific things that you make sure to do.
Yeah. So, what usually happens is you get together, you have coffee, you say, you're a good dude. Yeah, you're a good dude. Let's get together in the future. And nothing happens.
Right.
Nothing happens. I really believe that relationships are built on giving first and being intentional. So what Ian's referring to is when we sit, especially if it's a one-on-one, we'll get to know each other. We'll understand who our ideal client is. We'll get through all that stuff. And all the while I'm thinking, who can I connect this person with? Right there, right in front of them. I want to find another referral partner, probably, because I'm not probably quite ready to connect them to a client yet. I need to know them a little better, but I'm happy to refer them to other great connectors. And so during that meeting, towards the end of that first meeting, I'll say, Ian, do you know Knight Hinman? Knight's awesome. He's with BBSI. They're a PEO. And, hopefully if I'm, intelligent enough, you'll say, no, I don't know Knight. Right? Because I wouldn't have brought him up if I thought you knew him. Right. And so, great, I'm going to introduce you to Knight. Here's why I'm going to make the introduction. And you start to sort of frame up the relationship. Here's what Knight does, and here's what his business does, and here's who he works with. And that's a really good fit for your business and your life and your world. You're like, sweet. And then that day, make the introduction. Don't forget. There's nothing worse than making a promise and not following through.
Right.
So by the end of that day, worst case, the following day, you've made that first introduction to a brand new referral partner. And they're like, holy cow, this dude's for real. Right. And when they meet Knight or whomever it is, they're like, Knight's a good dude. They already start to see the value in the relationship with you.
Right.
So that's the first thing you do. The other thing I do before I leave that first meeting is I schedule the next meeting. And usually it's a month out. I tend to meet monthly with the new referral partners as I get to know them. And then we kind of figure out where that shakes out from there. But so we schedule a meeting for a month out. And then before we get together, the week before we get together, I make another introduction. Because by then I've already got a sense of who this person wants to meet with. And I'm thinking about my LinkedIn list and I make an introduction. So they've got 2 connections before we even meet the second time. So what happens when they come to that second meeting? What do you think they're thinking about?
They're thinking about who they can do this, who they can pay you back with. Right.
Thank you.
Right.
It creates an active referral relationship. It establishes tone right off the bat. Versus us getting together for coffee for 6 months and just kind of keeping an eye out. Well, I'm going to find somebody connect to Ian one of these days. I know I will. It doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And that cadence makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that that you touched on there that personally I think is hugely important is that you've got a process specifically, right? Because everyone's is going to be different, right? I mean, and so you meet with people once a month for the first few months or so, while you're getting to know one another. For me, I meet with people once every 3 months, and there's reasons for that too. And I mean, but whatever your thing is, like I always I don't schedule the follow-up meeting at the first one, because I want to show that I want them to see that I remember to send the email, or oftentimes I'm bragging about this automated referral follow-up process that I have, and I want them to see that, right? And so those types of things, I mean, but whatever your thing is, first of all, know what you want to do, but more importantly, know why you want to do it, right? Because that's the only reason that you're actually going to maintain it, and you're actually going to continue kind of pushing the ball down the field. Because otherwise, referral partnerships, with the way that most people network for referrals, is they meet once and then they have coffee and they say, oh yeah, great time, whatever, and then they walk away and they never talk to each other again until they're at the bar, right? And then they meet and they're like, oh yeah, it's is it Dan? Yeah, right. And at that point you're just like, sure, why not? Doesn't matter anymore. Right, exactly. But I mean, whatever you do, like, from one of the things that I started doing after at each meeting, one of 2 things, depending on what the meeting is. If it's a coffee and I don't have anything, we've all got a reminder system in our phone, and walking around our pocket with us now, right? Something that buzzes and bings and dings and the whole 9 yards, right? But if you have your computer with you and you have it open and you're looking at stuff, whatever, create a draft email for yourself. Put the name of the person that you want to send the referral to and the person that you want to refer into the to field, right? Put both people in there. Put a networking introduction or whatever, and then make sure and save it to your draft folder and close it out, leave it open, whatever. But having that started is going to make sure that unless you decide, what, this guy actually just sent me a referral and an introduction, and it was like his mom, and but unless you decide that you just don't want to make this introduction anymore, then you can, it's you always have that reminder, and I found it to be a great way to never forget to follow through with a promise that you make.
Yeah, I love it. I send myself emails all the time like that. So it's like, I would literally open my phone and say, intro Ian tonight, send it to myself. And then it's there, right? That's that. So whatever systematic way you can use, whatever technology you can use to leverage, that's what it's all about. It really is. I mean, it makes a huge difference. Then it's not a manual, like grabbing sticky notes and all this other crazy stuff that's just not scalable. Yeah,
right. Exactly. So we got about 5 more minutes here, and I want to make sure that we touch on the last thing that the last point of this conversation. Should you pay for referrals?
I love it. I love this question.
Yeah.
and of course, my typical response is, it depends, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So there are some industries that prohibit paying for or receiving money for referrals. So if we sort of acknowledge that and set that to the side, then it's more of a philosophical question than it is anything else. Generally speaking, my experience is, and what I believe in is, I want to give a referral to have an impact, to help the client, the referral partner, the whomever. And I believe, and it's been proven to me over time and over again, those come back.
Right.
It may not be through that individual, but somebody else. I get, the referral network spins. So typically I would say my preference is don't, because it also changes the intent of the referral, right? If I'm making a referral because I know I'm going to get a few bucks back, it may not be the right fit. It may be just okay, but I'm going to make a few bucks on the back end. I want to make it happen.
Yeah, right.
So it can change your intent, right? It really can.
Yeah.
There are times where it does make sense though. So let's say, for example, a strategic partnership, right? Where somebody has teed you up so well, has pre-sold you perfectly. You literally have to come in, shake a hand, kiss a baby, and the deal's yours.
Right.
There's money, that's worth money, right? Because you haven't had to spend time and money on marketing and sales and all this stuff that takes time. So to me, there is a worthwhile monetary exchange. And I have some relationships like that. Sure. Where I know if this person brings me in, I've already coached them on how to introduce me for that particular deal. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
It's a done deal. So generally, probably not because of the reasons I described, but there are always caveats to that.
Right. And I think it's important to, because there's two thoughts that I have on this. Because I think it's important to make a distinction between developing a channel partnership or a strategic partnership like that, right? So, like for example, and to your point, you mentioned that they know, that this person, every time that he refers you or she refers you, it's like the ball is on the tee. All you got to do is step up to the plate and, not fall down, and you're going to get at least a couple bases out of it. Right.
Make contact. Right. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. And, so, I mean, it's like, as long as you don't trip over yourself, you're good. But and then there's the channel partnership where, in my case, where I know that, XYZ agency is, whenever they make the introduction, it's literally so that we can process the payment, right? And that's it. And so it's and that's truly the extent of it, and it becomes really effective in that regard. Because I mean, it's and so that's worth paying for, because like you said, everything is all done. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I don't think it's a bad thing to pay for referrals, right? What I do think is sketchy is when you stand up at when you're going around the table at a networking event, you stand up and say, "Hi, I'm Ian. I do this, that, and the other thing. And oh, by the way, we pay for referrals." And then you sit down, and all the conversation that you have is, "We pay for referrals. We pay for referrals." And when we get together for a one-on-one, you remind me, "Hey, don't forget, we pay for referrals. So anybody that you can introduce me to." That's when it gets just to be a little gross. Right. I mean, and you walk away just feeling a little sticky from that kind of a conversation. So, and again, to your point, I'm not referring you because I like you anymore. I'm not referring you because I trust you. I'm referring you because you literally just made me walk away feeling just like a little creepy crawly, right? But I might still refer you because because I might make, $500 off of it, or
Well, when I hear somebody say, "I pay for referrals," my human brain immediately goes to, how much?
Yeah, right. Exactly, right.
Versus, let me get to know you better and make a great referral. It's how much?
Right.
So it does cloud the conversation. And again, it's not always bad. And there are some industries that it's expected, right? So obviously, if you're in an industry where sort of paying for referrals is expected, then that's just what it is, and that's okay. That's okay. Right. But generally speaking, if you're coming in to make an introduction for doing the right thing, to build value, to build relationships, have a bigger impact, the money will follow in some way or another. Right. I truly believe that. And if you can make a few bucks on the referral too, and it's a good fit, that's up to you, right?
But that's key. It's got to be a good fit.
It's got to be a good fit.
If it's not, then everybody's going to hate you. So.
Yep.
Well, we are at 3 o'clock here. This hour has flown by, you know. And
They always do, right?
seriously, and I feel like we could fill another hour with more conversation about this. But I'm currently on the East Coast, and the sun is apparently setting, and I'm getting a little Phantom of the Opera thing going on here. So, you know, I think it's probably time to wrap this out. But to everybody who was able to join us today, thank you so much. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, you know, definitely check out the replay. It's going to be on Facebook, YouTube. It goes out to our social channels, the whole 9 yards. So you know, check it out. Leave us some comments on the you know, on the excuse me, on the videos, and we'll get answers for you, and we'll rock and roll from there. So with that, we'll see you next month.
Awesome. Thanks. Good seeing everybody.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Take care.